the possible big step in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. Good evening, I'm Matt Mulcahy.
And I'm Megan Coleman. Today, Pfizer announced its vaccine works in children ages 5 to 11 and will seek approval from the FDA for this age group soon. Pfizer says the data collected shows the vaccine is effective in children. The dosage was about a third of what adults were given. The company now plans to use this data to seek emergency use authorization from U.S. regulators to begin offering vaccinations to those children as early as Thanksgiving or Christmas. By year's end, we could have yet another tool in our arsenal in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. It comes as Pfizer announces the results of its data analysis of the vaccine in children ages 5 to 11.
It's the next step in progress, and it's happening at lightning speed. Literally.
Dr. Joseph Domachowski is a pediatric infectious disease specialist at Upstate Medical University and lead investigator for Pfizer's pediatric COVID vaccine trial. The company has spent months monitoring some 2,600 children, including 100 here in central New York, to look at the vaccine's effectiveness. And while it happened at a record pace, Dr. Domachowski says there is a reason why.
Even at the level of the federal agencies, they are literally dropping everything else and putting this at the top of their pile. That's why we're seeing this happening at lightning speed. It's not because we've changed the process or made it a riskier, less safe process at all.
Pfizer is expected to ask the FDA for emergency use authorization this week. The FDA will review it, and if approved, shots could start going into kids' arms later this year.
Realistically, I'm thinking that we're talking at the best, probably Thanksgiving. I'm still thinking it's going to be closer to the end of the year.
It's unclear if the shots will be given out at mass vaccination sites like the On Center or state fairgrounds, or in your child's pediatrician's office or local pharmacy. What we do know, the side effects were mild and similar to those in older kids, and children developed antibodies equal to teenagers and young adults after a 2-shot regimen.
This is the safest and most effective way that we can protect these kids. And to not do it, to have it available and not do it, to me would be unethical.
Clinical trials are still underway in children ages 6 months to 4 years old.
If everything goes as expected, Pfizer could submit for that emergency use in those children within the next 4 to 6 weeks to then get that approval.
Henninger High School is in crisis. Learning disrupted last week to such an extent the school was canceled one day and the learning hours cut short another. And you're about to hear from 2 candidates who want to be on the school board. How would they deal with this and with issues of transparency that parents have been so frustrated by? Last week, the superintendent's explanation for canceling school one day is not one that parents were buying. He said he knew of 3 fights last Wednesday. CNY Central confirms and obtained videos of 5 fights that day. Superintendent Jaime Alicea insisting he closed Henninger on Thursday to deal with renovations and construction. But all of the repairs that were done that day deal with building safety and security upgrades. CBS 5's Connor White is with the Live Eye in Syracuse right now.
Today, a Syracuse City School District spokesman confirms that parents had to come down here to Henninger to pick up their kids early this afternoon after another fire alarm was pulled. They also confirmed to us that they weren't giving out passes into the hallway today, meaning kids needed escorts just to go to the bathroom. It marks 4 straight consecutive school days where education has been disrupted. This is one of just 5 fights that happened on school grounds at Henninger last Wednesday. That day, fire alarms in the school were pulled. A 17-year-old who didn't attend the high school was arrested for disorderly conduct. And school resource officers chased a suspect out of the building after receiving a report he may have had a gun.
When you're lying to parents, you got a real problem.
Gia Palermo is running as a Republican for school board and has 2 kids at Henninger. She says the district gave them false information from the get-go, receiving a robocall Wednesday night that students should not report to class Thursday.
So Henninger High School is going through renovation. There's some work that is being done in the building.
The superintendent detailed those renovations, all of them seemingly having to do with safety and building security. Added security cameras, covers for fire alarms, and locks on doors. But the superintendent insisting
People may think that we closed the school because of the altercation that happened yesterday. That was not the reason why we closed the school.
Palermo said that it was those problems with the building itself that allowed the fighting to happen.
It was because of those errors that all hell broke loose in school on Wednesday. It was because those things weren't finished that we ended up in the situation we were in.
I do know that if I was a parent at Henninger, I would be extremely upset right now.
Democratic candidate for school board Karen Cordano says she doesn't have firsthand information about the school building, but says it's concerning the building was even open if construction was not fully complete.
I'm hoping that this is a real wake-up call in terms of really assessing what is going on in these buildings that are under construction before we have students re-entering the buildings.
Neither the president for the Syracuse Teachers Union nor the current president of the school board were available for comment today, though the school board president, Dan Romeo, says that he will be commenting once the superintendent releases a better full-fledged plan as to how they're going to handle the issues that are ongoing at the high school. He says to expect that later this week.
A word yet on plans for the hotly debated Christopher Columbus statue in downtown Syracuse. Good evening, I'm Matt Mulcahy.
And I'm Megan Coleman. 3 days before the last Columbus Day, Mayor Ben Walsh announced the statue would be coming down. And we still know very little about what will go in its place.
It's a symbol of colonialism to some, while to others it's a beacon and reminder of a rich Italian-American heritage in Syracuse. We're now less than a month away from this year's Columbus Day, and not only is the statue still standing, but there seems to be little movement on providing people insight into what the remaining monument and the new idea of a heritage park will look like.
All this unfolding less than 2 months from Election Day, where voters in Syracuse will head to the polls to re-elect Mayor Ben Walsh or pick one of his challengers to lead Syracuse.
Leading Syracuse reporter Mary Keeler is live in downtown Syracuse after pressing the mayor on when we can see action. Mary.
Matt and Megan, it's been almost a full year since we learned from Syracuse Mayor Ben Walsh that the statue behind me would be coming down. And in that year's time, Mayor Ben Walsh has created 3 committees at least to discuss the reimagining of this circle. And apparently those discussions are still going on because the details are scarce into what this might look like. First, Mayor Walsh announced the creation of the Columbus Circle Action Group in June 2020. Then, in May, 2 more groups, the Heritage Park Advisory Committee and the Italian-American Task Force. Are you worried if things don't get done and worst case scenario for you, you're not in office anymore? Are you worried that these efforts are going to be derailed and that there will be some uncertainty there?
Mary, there are many pressing issues facing the city of Syracuse. I wouldn't even count this as one of them. It's important, and it's important to me, and it's important to many people in the community, but we're focused on a lot of other things.
I went back through our reporting on this and found a story from mid-May that led me back to the mayor Monday. Coincidentally, it was at an event on Columbus Avenue in Syracuse where we found this sign. In mid-May, though, you did say that before the first day of fall and before Election Day was your benchmark to kind of start revealing details of this the task force and those discussions in other advisory groups. Mm-hmm. Is that still tangible, or should people still wait to hear more about what these groups are talking about?
Well, again, I've discussed that the task force has met, that they've explored many different options, that they have at least one option that they agree to. But I want to be respectful to those that are involved. If that means that we miss a self-imposed deadline, that's not a concern to me. Election Day is of zero concern or consideration to me. What's of concern and has been from the beginning is to get this right.
Republican Janet Berman wants Walsh's job and the Columbus Monument to stay. Do you think this process has gone on too long?
This election is not a referendum on the Columbus statue. Despite the fact that this issue keeps coming up over and over and over again, this election is a referendum on leadership. And in the case of Mayor Walsh, his failure of leadership. The Columbus statue turmoil is just another example of his failed leadership.
Democratic mayoral candidate Khalid Bey was not available for an interview today. And what we do know, though, is that the wait for people in Syracuse or just anyone that is wondering about this will have to continue. Mayor Ben Walsh says that there has been some agreement among the task force stakeholders that there is a place in mind for a permanent area for this statue once it leaves Columbus Circle, but that too has not been released to the public just yet.